Everybody, Scoutcrafter here again. Today I have a pretty exciting video. A socket set, German socket set, pre-war. Took me 6 years to complete this because they're not floating around too much. So let's go downstairs, see what we got. Okay, about 5 years ago, I see this guy on YouTube and he's demonstrating his German socket set. I thought it was the slickest thing since sliced bread, and so I was collecting socket sets at the time and I wanted to get it, so I kept an eye out, and not long after, a few months after, on eBay, I saw this set. And this was the set the guy was demonstrating, but when I got it, was missing pieces. It didn't have the right parts, but it was part of it. And I bought it. It was only like 13 bucks, and I said, you know something, maybe one day I'll come across a full set or whatever the case may be. But I thought I could fix it at the time, but I had no idea how the mechanism worked. Well, fast forward to about a month ago, I see on eBay, what do I see? Yes, a complete set of, and look at this. Isn't this cool? Directions for use. This has the full directions here on how to use it, and it shows the it's the all-in-one wrench and it shows how it works, and this is a complete set, plus I have any extras from the other set. How cool is this? So, but this was expensive. This was like $40-something I paid. But you know what? I said I have to have it. Now I got the set. So I get the set home, and there's a few issues, you know. I got this rod's bent, you know, we got a couple things. But when I went to use the socket, it was binding. The socket wouldn't turn. It was damaged. Oh, so I said, the good thing is this one wasn't damaged. So what I did is I swapped out the heads, and thank goodness everything was the same production run or whatever. This bolt it doesn't even belong in there, but it was holding everything together, and I was able to swap it apart. And you see this one's a little bit, it's not working too good, but I'm hoping that one day my skill set is enough that I could take this apart and redo it. But I got this to work the way it should. So before I demonstrate it, it's dirty. I want to clean these up. I'm going to clean them up, and then I'll demonstrate how cool this German socket set is pre-war. Okay, here's the box that it came in, and it's a little dirty. We're going to see if we can clean that up with some mineral spirits, especially the top here. I think there might be some writing under here. Can you see that? It looks like there's some writing, and I'd like to see, I don't know, or it could be just markings. And then, of course, we have the contents of the socket set. We have the full set here, and we have a right angle attachment that also has a ratcheting device. We have the screwdriver device. I'm going to dump all these in a bucket of degreaser, clean them up, and we'll be back. Using some heavy-duty degreaser and some soap and water, and now we just rinsed it a couple times. We got most of all the grease off of there, and now we're going to do some individual cleaning. Now here is our pre-wire brush evaluation, and this is where a donor set really comes in handy, because look what I found here. This socket is cracked. You can see here, it was actually extended a little bit. I squeezed it back to make sure I'm getting the right size, but it just so happens that my donor set has the exact socket that I could replace it with, and in great shape. So that's where it helps, you know. Normally this would have been like a real bummer, but because we had that extra set now, I can just replace it, and we'll deal with the other one when we do the other repairs or whatever. You can see there's still a little bit of rust. We got to straighten this bar out. We're going to take it to the wire brush. Interesting thing is, you see here, you can see the bluing. You can see I don't know what, maybe they did a flame bluing. And remember, this is pre-war. These are old sockets. They didn't have the techniques that we have today. And you could see all the bluing marks on here, which is pretty interesting, I think. I don't want to take too much of this off, but I want to clean it up, get any rust off. We'll be back. Now I wanted to do this in real time so you could see. Now if you look here, this is the socket, and I'm going to show you the sweet spot of the wheel that I use. Now you see the wheel here, this side here where I'm touching, that's the sweet spot. That's where the sides of the wire brush are actually scraping, so to speak, some of the corrosion off of the part. And if you use the very front of the wheel, you'll get a different finish. So you have to work and find out what actually works for you, what the best part of the wheel is. But I have found for these sockets here, we didn't want to do any surface mangling. So just using that side of the wheel really gave it a nice sheen, a nice finish to it. And then we flipped the socket over and did the sides using that same spot of the wheel, and you could see that takes off all the excess scaling and whatnot that you had from the socket. I find that works best for me. Now there are some spots you won't be able to get with this large wheel, as you can see, like that indent in the middle, that recess, and for that we moved the camera and the socket over to the smaller wheel. Now this wheel's kind of worn out, but it's just perfect for this smaller area here. You can see I get in right in there and really get a good surface finish that way. After this, we had to straighten out the long rod, and to do that we just put it into the vise and just tweaked it by hand a little bit.
Now
just
you can see here on the ratcheting device, somebody I guess put a pliers or something on here to try and hold this so that they can loosen or tighten the knurl. But we got it. I'm going to take this off, and I'm going to do it with a regular file. That's always fun.
Now the file makes quick work of getting off those marks and whatnot. After that, we took it over and we did a little buffing. Always the buffing gives a nice sheen to the sockets, also protects them, gives a good finish. You don't have to worry about rust or whatnot. Later on we'll go over with some WD-40. Well, everything's been wire brushed and buffed. Everything looks fantastic. We're going to spray it down now with some WD-40 and wipe everything down, and then we'll lubricate and get ready for a final presentation. Now it's time to work on the box. We're going to use some mineral spirits and some steel wool and a piece of well, this is an old sock, but this, you know, it's almost like a terry cloth, and then some paper towel. And we want to make sure we don't mess up any of this, but we want to get all this dirt and everything off, and maybe we'll seal it up. But first we're going to clean this up. Now again, we used the mineral spirits and steel wool, and a lot of dirt came up here, and that's, you just keep doing it until the rag doesn't show up too much dirt anymore. Then afterwards we put a nice one coat of shellac on there just to seal everything up and let that dry overnight. And you remember my favorite part. You remember what these sockets looked like before we started. We are finished, and this came out really nice. A little bit of history on the socket set. Hans Dissler was the inventor of this ratcheting mechanism here. You could see how this works. There's two of them here, one for the right angle, one for the full length ratchet. And this here was a 15-piece set, but he invented the ratcheting device in, he applied for the patent in 1925. It was granted in 1927. He was, there was other patents throughout the world. He was, this particular set was marketed all over the place. And you can see here, this is a 15-piece set, and this one here was obviously marketed towards English-speaking areas, but they also, if you look, a lot of it has German writing and whatnot. And I want to show you how this set actually works and why it's so interesting. First, let's go over the markings on the wrench. You can see here it says DRP is marked on the wrench. That's the manufacturer. And here we have the logo of the company that manufactured it. The handle is nicely knurled, and it is hollow. And there is two slots here. I don't know what these slots are for unless it's a manufacturing process. This, what looks like a removable socket, is not. That's the actual part that stays on. It's a one-piece unit, and it has 5 positions. By pushing this little detent button, you can see it locks in. And you could do it straight too. It locks in there, so you can have it straight. But and then the ratcheting system works like this. You can see it ratchets like this. Now, if you want to reverse it, we have this for tightening. If you want to go loose, you hold this part. You turn the knurl to the left for loosening, and you can see it loosens that way. Now, in a real-world application, let's say we want to tighten this nut here, we would take a socket that fits appropriately, press it into the the ratchet, and then we would use it this way, and you could see how that works. Now, the ratcheting mechanism is by no means a fine ratcheting mechanism, but you could see it does work. Now, if you wanted to use an extension, here was the extension that went on. You would pop the extension in, and then you could put the appropriate socket into the top of the extension and work it that way. If you needed additional length, you could just push in the detent, go to your straightforward, and you had a very long wrench, so to speak. And then if you needed torque on that, you could take this rod that we straightened out and you could place it into here, and it becomes a T-handle wrench like this. It also had a screwdriver mechanism that you could pop the screwdriver into the tip, and now you had a ratcheting screwdriver. If you needed more torque, you can lock it down to the side like this, and you could get more torque like this using the screwdriver that way. The kit came with a secondary ratcheting device, a smaller head, that also fit all the other applications. But if you wanted to, let's say, have a right angle screwdriver, and you could use the extension, pop the extension on here, and have a smaller ratchet that's only about 7 inches long. And you could use that with all the sockets too. Well, the box came out nice and clean. Put a coat of shellac on here. On the back of it, where the lettering is, over here, where the instructions are, it's very important. This was coated, but you can't use any kind of coating. I cleaned it, got all the dirt off, and then I just put some paste wax over it, so that's protecting. And there are the instructions, all in one wrench. Everything fits nicely in the case. Just a really nifty pre-war, again, 1927 was when I got the patent, and just enjoy this socket set. I hope you did too. Thanks very much for tuning in. Take care and have a nice day. Bye-bye.